an opportunity to catch up with someone who's lived a pretty full life and spends many of his days these days providing support and information and I suppose some energy to people who need it. His name is Ernest Stabek and he joins us on TheInformer. Ernest, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for
now,
having me
in this rich life that you've led over the years, I bet you and I have managed to garner quite a list of pet hates.
Yeah, I think we've all got those. I suppose I've got a whole list of them, but probably the key one's just people not being authentic and being direct and telling it like it is. You know, that's probably my key one in reality. I also have some pet hates around technology, which is specifically around the amount of applications out there that keep trawling and gathering information on us without any return to that relationship. It's sort of all one-way traffic in my mind. So, you know, I prefer to take up applications that are anonymous where possible, and sort of minimize the amount of data collection that goes on. So much so that I just had someone asking me to set up a separate email or something on my computer and everything, and I said, look, I'm a dinosaur. I do it the old way. So if you want to set it up, you're going to have to guide me through it. And in reality, because I won't use Office 365 and stuff like that, because I don't see value in it personally.
Ernest, you touched on earlier in the conversation about data gathering. I think it's one of those things that is, you know, all too one way, but there has been a little glimpse of some light at the tunnel. I noticed Apple, with its latest update, is now giving its users, for the first time that I can see, a real positive option of getting out of the tracking component and keeping your advertising invasion, or the invasion of all those advertisers, to a minimum. You're still going to get bombarded, but not in the way that they used to shape everything around you. What do you make of that?
Oh, look, I think it's a great step forward. I hope it's genuine. That's my skepticism in this space. So I have a number of colleagues who have chosen to buy telephones and have worked very hard to break away from the Google and the iOS platforms, and so that they can reduce the amount of cookies and activities that are actually following and tracking themselves. But yeah, it sounds like a good move. In reality, I'd like to see it go a stretch further, where the big players start to respect and value our data, and that could be through some form of data exchange. So I'm doing a lot of research over the last decade with a number of colleagues in forensics and data science around how we might be able to value data one day in a serious sense, like we do with any hard assets. So the intangibles, being able to value it, and that would be great, because then we might see some respect return, where we can trade. Ultimately, if I give you my data by choice, then you give me something in exchange for that. Whereas at the moment, it appears to be all one-way traffic. So sounds like a good sign. I'll look into that a bit more. But,
so can you imagine actually getting a bonus for having some experience?
That would be fabulous. Well, I did hear some years ago about a shop front that emerged in the UK that was actually allowing people to trade their data, so that you could walk in, a bit like a blood bank in the US. You could walk in and do some sort of barter and sell the information that you might have available.
I like that. We'll have to look into that. Speaking of looking into things, you mentioned earlier you're doing a lot of coaching. We talk about authenticity and all of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
People today, more and more, I'm seeing, are processing very differently to the way that possibly you and I processed 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Is that right or wrong?
Definitely. Yeah. No, that's the reality of it. I think we're just so much more, I think this generation's so much more informed because of the technology and the openness of sharing of information. So we are different, but we're all still searching for that real experience, ultimately, that will help us emerge and live our lives more fully and purposefully at the end of the day. So the coaching that I do is generally, in some instances I privately coach people, but in most instances it's just embedded in the work that I do, which can be trusted advisory, strategic soundboarding, whatever it is that I'm doing with clients, there's an element of coaching, guiding, teaching in the whole process. And a lot of it's about just opening their eyes to a broader vision than they currently have. So they might be experts in their field, and often they're highly technical people that I deal with, and they often are what I would call tunnel vision because of that. And what I'm trying to do is broaden their horizons whilst at the same time challenging what I call the insanity of the norm. So it's actually digging under the fabric and saying, well, yeah, that might be one path, but there's probably multiple options that you might want to consider. And given the availability of data and information now, maybe we should shop around a little bit before diving too quickly into, decision making. Yeah.
That's interesting listening to you talking about the way people make decisions, because my life experience is the more successful they are, or the more seasoned they are, the less susceptible they are, or the less inclined they are to look to do things in a different way. And in this modern world of ours, if we're not evolving and if we're not shifting, if we're not changing, then we are going to be sitting in that corner looking very much alone.
Yeah, I think there's two dimensions to that, George. One is that the more senior, mature people are a little bit resistant to change based on their experience and their environments and pathways that they've learned. And then the younger people are the opposite. They're absorbing information because it's so readily available. But again, often they get trapped falsely as well into thinking that the only answer is Google, for example, or a search engine. So, and I think that what I tend to encourage, whether they're young or old, is to think beyond that and think, well, there might be a broader dimension to things. So I was working with a client just before this call, and we're working on what I call investment logic map stuff. And I was sort of saying that we need to challenge all the thinking back and forward at every iteration. And most clients are looking for a defined outcome all the time. They're looking for something concrete. It's like the old days when consultancies would produce a 30-day or the yellow pages, a 50-page report. These days it's a one-page visual, but in my mind it's an iterative document in many instances that needs continuous refinement, and we're reviewing all the time, rather than a static piece of paper. And in my business, I refuse to write reports for clients anymore. They're one page, and they're difficult conversations I'll have with them to try to tease out a pathway forward for them maturing or their business maturing. So,
look, I love the analogy you threw about Google having all the answers but no wisdom.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's got a combination these days. It's got a combination. If you read enough, you can pick things up. And if you read between the lines, but as they say, there's nothing better than practice
Ernest,
to learn anything.
If people do want to learn some more and they want to think outside the square, or take a different stance to some of that maybe that you alluded to earlier, how do we get in touch with Ernest Stabek?
The easiest ways. Look, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter are probably the most active social platforms, but I'm readily available. My email is just my initials, es@sipvictoria.com, if you want to contact me. And my contact details, you just Google me and you'll find me.
So Google does come.
Yeah, I'm not hiding it. I'm not on Facebook and I'm not on Instagram by choice in reality, because I do classify myself as a bit of a dinosaur, but I do it by choice because I find that I'm a very human-to-human interaction person, and I find that I can only digest, because I'm dealing with SMSs, private channels, LinkedIn, Twitter. How many of these can you consume in one day? I don't believe in putting my eggs in one basket, but I do believe in limiting them to a set array of communication channels at the end of the day.
I'm going to come back and talk to you about our bucket list next time.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
So, Ernest, terrific to talk to you and to get a sense of what you've been doing for the last few years and what you love to do, and that is help people and coach people through difficult times. Ernest Stabek, thank you for joining us on The Informer.
Yeah, appreciate it, and look forward to listening more often.
Thanks,
George.
Thank you, my friend.
Take care.
Thank you.
All the best.